Hi everybody, and welcome to Nile, Washington, home of the Woodshed Restaurant. And today we look at exposures of the Ellensburg Formation here at Nile, and then Naches, and then Thorp, asking a very simple question. Are those mudflows the same in all three locations? Can we connect the dots between those three exposures of the Ellensburg Formation in the foothills of the Cascades? Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Well, here you go. Ellensburg Formation. Layer upon layer of volcanic mudflow, lahar in other words, river stones, lake beds, tephra deposits, all in the vicinity of 8 million years ago, I guess, or maybe 10 million years ago, or maybe 12 million years ago, but we are younger than the Yakam of Basalt or the Columbia River basalts. So I'm not sure, but I think that down low, that's the very tippy top of the German chocolate cake. So without knowing the details yet, I think that down here in the hole, this is the Rattlesnake Creek drainage at Nile. This is the Grand Ronde lava. This is 16 million year old basalt that came out of fissures down in southeastern Washington, northeastern Oregon. You know the drill by now. But sitting on top of the basalt, the Yakam of Basalt as it's known locally, is this thick wedge, this thick package of Ellensburg Formation. And you are looking west, like Rainier and Chinook Pass is an hour behind that hill. But today we're going to kind of work our way to the north and northeast and say, are these Ellensburg layers the same exact layers as we have at Naches, and then ultimately to Thorp in the Katas Valley, close to Central Washington University. Let's flip you around. So yes, thanks for joining us today. This is another video where I'm just looking for narratives. I'm looking for ideas for what we can sink our teeth into deeply this winter. And in this particular case, this is something I've been meaning to do for more than 30 years. It's embarrassing I haven't done it sooner. Like, I knew these beds were down here. I never looked carefully at them, and we're not going to look at them carefully today, by the way. I don't know how to get over there. Maybe private land, I don't know. But we're just going to try to set the stage for a deep study, probably in February, of the upcoming Cascades A to Z series. I've got a paper I want to show you. Let me flip you around again. We'll look on the hood of the car. So I was talking to Andrew Sadowski, Washington Geological Survey, who has an office just a few doors away from mine on the first floor of Discovery Hall. And I was talking about this Ellensburg stuff, and Andrew's talking about Humphrey. And I'm like, you mean Gene Humphreys, like University of Oregon? He's like, I don't think so. So Andrew tipped me off. I don't think I knew much about this paper. 1996. It's a master's thesis by Christopher Humphrey, supervised by Paul Hammond. And the headline from this thesis is that by careful study of the upper Ellensburg Formation, Old Scab Mountain appears to be the source. Mount Rainier, Rimrock Lake, Washington 410, and Bumping Lake. And Humphrey is telling us that Old Scap Mountain, which is right along the Bumping River Road, that video that I shot where I crashed the party with Hannah Shamloo in her Geology 320 class, and Chris Mattinson was there as well, Bumping River Tough. That's too old for our stuff today, but I'm on the North Fork of the Rattlesnake Canyon, or at least I'm in this little section in here. I mean, Humphrey has all these upper Ellensburg Formation layers worked out, strat section after strat section, trying to find data, chemistry, ages, to tie this stuff together. This paper is waiting for you at nickzentner.com. Click on the word Cascades. I've never been over there, but Humphrey has. And it's time for us to follow these layers, or wonder if we can follow these layers, to Naches, the little town of Naches, and something known as the Naches Grade. Over there. Let's go over there. Thank you. Well, I find it interesting that straight north, there's nothing but Yakam of Basalt. So our beds are suddenly not continuous to the north, it appears, because we have this massive uplift of CRBs, Yakam of Basalt. But that's the idea, that these uplifts of these major ridges, the Yakima folds, there's been a lot of uplift since 10 million years ago to destroy former drainages. So in other words, I'm driving along Rattlesnake Creek, which is a drainage that has dug into the earth to expose these to expose these Ellensburg Formation layers. And it's a surprise that as soon as you kind of turn your car around and start looking north, this is right down here at the town of Nile, you lose the Ellensburg layers completely, the Lahars completely, because they've been uplifted and totally erased. Evidence that there's major uplift and major folding. Uplift intensifies erosion just to the north, but that's not going to deter us. So it is stunning. If you take the time to come here to Nile, it is stunning to have this amount of Ellensburg Formation on one side of Highway 410, and then on the other side of Highway 410, they're just gone. And it becomes even more interesting because these are the layers that are correlative with the layers over in the Katas Valley, apparently. But maybe that's going to turn out not to be true once we get serious about this in February. I've got you through the front windshield, but despite that, this is really something. These are thick lahars. Now, don't we need a tall stratovolcano as a source for these? Don't you need a major amount of slope just to give the momentum and the gravity to send these thick slurries of liquid cement down this valley and have these things travel tens of miles? I think you do. And so is Humphrey saying that Old Scab Mountain used to be a tall Rainier-like stratocone? Ghost volcano, in other words? Wow, really cool. And then turning around and heading north, look it, it's gone. I mean, the source, Old Scab Mountain, Old Scab Volcano, is behind us. We were just following those lahars, and now just literally turning the white car around in real time. This is nothing but basalt. This is nothing but the bedrock that was at the bottom of the stack that we saw behind us. So this is dramatic, and I didn't totally quite get this until seeing the mismatch to the north and then to the south of the dinky little town of Nile. home of the Woodshed Restaurant. All right, thanks. Let's head to Naches and pick up the story. Okay, well, this is the Naches grade with some beautiful late fall sunlight. And these cars are driving down to the little town of Naches down there in the hole, US 12. You're looking south-ish. But if I swing you around and we look at this exposure, you have to be impressed with this, don't you? I don't totally know what I'm looking at, but I'm confident that the upper half of this is at least one, maybe multiple volcanic mudflows or lahars. And my question in today's video is this lahar 10 million years old or 8 million years old or whatever? And is this thing one of the resistant ledges that we saw back at Nile? Have they been correlated? And if they have been correlated, and if Humphrey is confident that the lahars back at Nile are coming from Old Scab Mountain, does that mean these are coming from Old Scab Mountain? I have a sneaking suspicion that work has already been done, and I just am unaware of it. I think it's going to be February before we actually get serious about it and dig deeply. But to have this surface light up like a Christmas tree, and apparently this is a younger lahar that didn't have any major boulders carried within it, or very few, that dug into and erosively scoured the top of this older lahar. I don't know. I got a hammer. Feels like I should at least show you one fresh surface on one of these clasts coming out of this lahar. Yeah, I think we're going to see something almost identical at Thorp at the end of this video. These look like old friends to me. And I guess they're mostly dacites, pink dacites and gray dacites. Is that possible? I don't know much about dacites. Lavas, in other words, that are mostly silicic. But they're all rounded. And does that mean the lahar is swallowing up a bunch of river rocks in a riverbed and then incorporating them into this kind of sandy matrix? I guess that's what that means. I mean, the lahar isn't capable of making its own rounded rocks, is it? My goodness, what a spot. Never had the light this good. These things have been sitting here. I mean, that guy's about ready to fall. That guy right there has been encased inside of this volcanic lahar, one of many lahars in the Ellensburg Formation for more than 8 million years until like this fall, I guess. I don't know, do I dare? I guess I did dare. All right, this is going to be a hi-ya this is a fat one, but I think I want to try to get it open. Hi-ya! Oh, crap. Hiya. Hiya. Got him. Before meeting Hannah Shamlo, I just call that a rhyolite. I guess it's not. Okay, I gotta say I'm pretty excited. I didn't really know that there were a couple of rather dense master's theses from Portland State University on this very stuff. And those theses combined with the Gary Smith papers and the Gary Smith interview, which is coming next month, I think there's going to be a lot of raw materials for us to work with the Ellensburg Formation. Humphrey was here in the summer of 1994. Wow, okay, that's a long time ago. And here's a strat column talking about this thesis. The basalt of Summit Creek and the Eocene Arcos, the Ohanapikosh, green rocks, in other words, Mount Rainier National Park. Here's the Yakam of Basalts, the Vantage Sedimentary Horizon, but it's all this stuff here, all this upper Ellensburg Formation, which is, I guess, between like 12 million years ago and 5 million years ago. And all sorts of options here. I think there's a cute little map that's really going to help us. Beautiful, simple map from Humphreys Thesis, 1996. There's a bunch of Ellensburg Formation in the Sela Basin. There's a bunch of Ellensburg Formation in the Nile Basin. We started our video this morning in the Nile Basin. Then we suddenly ran into this major roadblock, which is an uplifted block of basalt. I think we can just generally call this Clemens Mountain, which is this rising basaltic dinosaur, which had a bunch of stippled Ellensburg Formation on the back of the dinosaur, but the dinosaur rose so high that stippled Ellensburg Formation on the back of the dinosaur got stripped away. Make sense to you? Ellensburg's way up here, and we're going to find some upper Ellensburg Formation at the end of this video up here. It kind of looks at this map pattern that the rivers carrying the Lahars were going kind of from Old Scab to Nile to Sela, which may very well be true. But maybe that's misleading. Maybe we tell that story because we've got a bunch of Ellensburg here, we've got a bunch of Ellensburg 4 here, we just connect the dots. But maybe the Ellensburg, maybe the stippled Lahars and riverstones of the Ellensburg were just a broad apron across the whole thing, including the town of Ellensburg and Thorp. And maybe because of the uplifting basaltic ridges all through this country, most of that former stippled blanket is totally erased and taken out of here by the Yakima River and its tributaries. And so maybe there was a majority of Old Scab being the source and like a northeasterly apron, rivers flowing in this direction. We just happen to have a lot at the right finger and the ring finger up where Ellensburg is located. Dacitic xenoliths. There's tufts in here. All right, let's go out and take a look. A straight up conglomerate at the top, then a very frothy, pumicey, pinkish layer that's hard to get your hands on. And then this stuff. sparkly and sandy. Sparkly and sandy. Bunch of quartzes, some micas. I don't think it's just a sandstone. Is it? There's no real bedding. Or if there is bedding, it's quite faint. Let's see if we can get our hands on that. You see this little, this is like a sandwich, like a rye bread, white bread, and then the meat is this little pimento, pumice pimento thing. Oh, we can get up there right there, I think. Come on, Hokas. Come on, Hokas. Not entirely sure what I'm looking at. Here it's 12 inches of very lightweight pumice popcorn. What is that? Why are there such incredibly delicate little popcorn kernels of pumice? They're rounded. Did they get floated in here on some water thing? Is this a whole lahar? Is this a gray lahar with a frothy pumice top? It's kind of a sharp boundary, but I don't even really know how to tackle this from a Geology 101 point of view, really. Such a tough spot to stand without slipping down, but that is really amazing. And it's like the bottom of these pumice blocks, these lower kernels of pumice popcorn are in the gray. Like the gray, this is all gray, and the gray is going up into the interstices between the pumice popcorn blocks. So maybe this frothy pumice top is part of this deposit. Is that possible? No, let's see if I can do this. Can I just keep walking on this little big boy. Big boy. Daddy's a big boy. Yeah, now this is okay, well that makes sense to me. That our thickness of our pumice popcorn layer is down to nothing, and then it fattens again. To me, there was probably tens of feet of this pumice popcorn, but this, which I'm interpreting as just a main channel of a river, was high energy enough to cut into the pumice popcorn. But over here, we're losing the light. Maybe that's a help for you. The pumice popcorn is back to being thick over there. They're glued in there all right. Focus. Look at how ashy my fingertips are getting. Wow. Fun outcrop. Tricky to get up here. Tricky to stand. Loud trucks going by. But maybe worth your time if you've got the right mental framework. Paul Hammond in living color. White Pass, Mount Rainier, Chinook Pass. This is an unpublished map as far as I can tell. Fife's Peak Caldera, Mount Aches Caldera. I've been doing a fair number of videos up in this country this summer, Tatoosh, Pluton, and so on. But today, we're down here Ellensburg. And then Clemens Mountain, gray, is basalt. This is this rising basaltic dinosaur, which used to have light yellow, peach, clinging to its back, eroded away completely. And right now, we are in this neighborhood here. We're in all this Ellensburg that is well exposed. But I think you're hearing me now. We're heading towards here to finish the video, but this and this are today's remnants of once was nothing but a thick apron of peach E. A thick apron of Ellensburg. Away from, is it just old scab that's the source? I wonder. Paul Hammond thinks, yeah, this is good too. Come on, this is good too. We'll look at these in February more carefully. But I didn't dream up the color scheme just out of the thin air. I was influenced heavily by Paul Hammond. So here's the last 50 million years of time. He's got greenish for Ohanapakash. Good job. Bumping Lake Pluton. Yeah, we've knocked off a number of these this winter, but today we're way up here. And he's got dacite plugs. And he's got Ellensburg Formation. You can see how young it is compared to all this other stuff. Kind of a simplified version of this. Oh, I like this. Oh, I like this. Oh, I like it. Wow, I love the way this pops out here. Which caldera is this? Is that the Fife's? This is the Fife's Peak volcano. Wow. Yeah. Plenty of beautiful maps to share with you in February from Paul Hammond. Thank you. Okay, one more stop as promised. We are dropping down into the Katas Valley, home of Central Washington University in Ellensburg, Washington, USA. And I went up and over Ellensburg Pass, which is the straight shot from Naches grade, where we just were. And I was up and over Umtanum Ridge, which is another one of these basaltic dinosaurs that lifted high enough to shed the Ellensburg Formation off of its back. And so it seems like we're in a different world. We are in some ways. But geologically, once we get down into this syncline, we're going to see some Ellensburg Formation that I think quite confidently is a direct connection to where we started the video today. Well, today we are finishing the video just as I promised. In the Katas Valley, near Thorp, Washington, just a few miles from Ellensburg, Washington. And everyone agrees these are also the upper Ellensburg Formation layers. Everyone agrees that there's volcanic mudflow and river rock and pumice and other things here on display. And yes, I've taken Geology 101 lab students here every quarter for 35 years. There's at least 3 major lahars here. And we had certainly more than 3 major lahars back at Nile. And just riffing here a little bit with you, this is just a portion of the stack of the upper Ellensburg here. There's a bunch down below the road. There's some that's even younger and higher than what's exposed here at Thorp. There is a potential that lahar, or that lahar, or that lahar, or that lahar are the same as a couple of those lahars we started with back in Nile. Look both ways, boy. So this has been an unstable slope this past summer. So here's a fresh batch of lahar that's come down. Look at this, beautiful, wow. These look a little more weathered than at Naches. And we're getting a three-dimensional look at what I guess are these dacite cobbles that got incorporated into this volcanic mudflow, or lahar. And it's unstable here. It's maybe a bit more competent up at Naches. But I don't know. We were just at Naches a few minutes ago in the video, right? That's fresher in your mind than it is in mine. Isn't this the same kind of gray, poorly laminated train boy? This looks familiar from what we saw at Naches, does it not? And you're like, yeah, I know. It kind of looks the same, but like, why don't you do some study about this? Well, I think that's the point. It has been studied carefully, but in papers that are 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. And it's up to us to try to dig into those papers, get some hardcore data, and maybe make some connections that nobody has made yet. Or possibly just put some new eyes on connections that have been made. I don't know, what do you think? Don't these look very similar to the stones we were just looking at in Naches? I've always been impressed with the visually pleasing look of these river cobbles, but never did much more with them than appreciate them. So put this in your memory bank and realize that if you stick with this winter, these gorgeous stones are going to be studied carefully with our discussions in February of 2024. Wow. And you're like, tell me what's going on here. I can't. Even though this is the most famous outcrop so close to where I teach school, I've always had a bad feeling in my stomach. I've been out here hundreds of times with students. And the bad feeling is, why haven't I figured out the details here? Talking to myself. Then I've got other things going on, I just never get to it. Thanks, everybody. Finishing here at Thorp. Where did we visit? Nile, then Naches, then Thorp. Always meant to do this. And I filmed this all in the span of 3 hours. So it's not like I drove half a state to get to these different spots. Like, those other two spots are just to the south. Up and over a couple of basaltic ridges, but they're just to the south. Let's see if we can't move forward and spend a few letters on the Ellensburg Formation this coming winter. Thank you, I love you, and goodbye from Thorp, Washington.